So, welcome back to the 2020 Bibliometrics and Research Assessment Symposium. My name is Chris Belter, and along with Ya-Ling Liu, I am one of the event co-hosts. A couple of quick reminders. We are recording, but we're not recording the attendees chat. Audio for all attendees is in broadcast only, so you don't need to join the audio session. All attendees are muted and will remain muted throughout the session. So all questions, including technical issues, are going to be handled through the chat. Please remember to send your chat messages to everyone so that all of us can see them. We do have folks monitoring the chat just to make sure. So please do send your questions to everyone. And finally, live captions are available in the multimedia viewer panel in the lower right of the WebEx screen. So with that, I am going to turn things over to my colleague Ya-Ling Liu for the final session of the day. Ya-Ling?
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. All right. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. It's been 3 long days, and I know there must be some information or WebEx fatigue. And it's Friday afternoon, so thank you for sticking around. Since I can't say something like satisfaction guaranteed or you get your money back, I just aim to make it worth your while. Okay, just like everybody else, I'm going to share my slides later, so don't worry about that. Okay. People often ask me that, Ya-Ling, you do bibliometric analysis or research evaluation all the time. You must really like evaluations. So how do you evaluate your services? And I think that's a very tricky and tough question, because how can I be the player and the referee at the same time? And I don't really think that I like evaluation better than any of you, but I do think we all do evaluations from time to time. Okay, so this is my daughter. She's a teenage driver, and she just got her provisional license last week. But whenever she drives, my heart is in my mouth. So we still offer a hand from time to time. So for those of us who have driven for decades, driving has become an internalized skill. So we scan the environment, we know how much wheel to turn, how much weight to put on the pedal to keep distance, how fast or slow to go when there is a car next to us, or how to avoid a collision point. And these skills do not come naturally. We learn them by going through a lot of internal and external evaluation through the years. So we constantly do evaluations so we know we're on the right track and that we can achieve our goal. Okay, so in terms of evaluations, there are dozens or maybe hundreds types of evaluations. I'm just only picking a few to represent the things that we do a lot. So we do a lot about need assessment, process evaluation, outcome evaluation, cost effectiveness evaluation, and impact evaluation. But the most important thing is that we use these evaluations to achieve a goal. And for those of us who work either in academia or maybe in certain industry or maybe in the government, our goal is always that how do we affect the institute's success? Okay, so let's take a look at the mission and the goals of NIH. So NIH says that NIH provides leadership and direction to programs designed to improve the health of the nation by conducting and supporting research in a lot of different areas. But I would like to direct your attention to the last bullet point. So NIH also supports in directing programs for the collection, dissemination, and exchange of information in medicine and health, including the development and support of medical libraries and the training of medical librarians and other health information specialists. So helping with the training or the development of health informationists has been one of the goals of NIH. And for the NIH library, we have the same thing. And that's how we developed the NIH library bibliometrics services. So we are the ones who help with NIH staff understand and evaluate scientific publication portfolios from the NIH and from around the world. But our goals, okay, 3 things. The first one is to promote increased understanding of bibliometrics for NIH staff. And then the second one is to assist NIH staff with bibliometric analysis and decision making. So you can see that it's about education and analysis. And then the third one, further the adoption of the bibliometric services by the broader library community. So it's kind of the combination of a training and library services. So these are the goals of the NIH bibliometric services. And whenever we are evaluating something, I think we have to evaluate them against the goals. So that's why I would like to highlight the goals from the library, from our mother institution, the NIH. Okay. All right. So it's a very quick overview about our development. And here what you see is actually the stages of the development of the services. Okay, so we established or we launched the program in May 2014. So in the first 1.5 years, it's kind of like an exploration. So we try a lot with different things. Okay, and then we reach to the establishment or expansion stage, and then to the evaluation one. But also, you can also see there are a lot of overlapping and a lot of repetition or irritation of this cycle. So you can also see that all of the things going on can be in progress, ongoing, and you can also see in a certain period, we may focus on specific evaluation, but not that much in other periods of time. And I'm going to give you more context later. Okay, so you can see that for data testing, tools evaluation, regarding the data sources and quality and the metrics, it's always ongoing. From the very beginning to present, we're always doing that because there are always new tools. There are always changes from the databases. So we have to do a lot of evaluation on that. We also do a lot of evaluations about the services, especially the analysis or the reports that we provide. And since training is one of our major goals, we do a lot of evaluation on the training as well, including the training we provide for the NIH community and also outside of NIH for the larger community. And in the end, we do a lot of service evaluation as well. And you can see that there is a gap here between 2016 and 2018. So we did a little bit of service evaluation in the first 2 years, and then we didn't do anything on that until last year again. And I'm going to tell you about why and how we do that. And also from last year, we did some usage evaluation and procedures evaluation. So these are all sorts of different evaluations that we have been doing. Okay. And I think the journey or the stages of this development kind of are reflected to this comic strip that my son created over the years. So on the upper left is the first one, saying that glasses, where are my glasses? I can't see. Someone give me my glasses. Look, important information. And sorry for the bad spelling. He was only 4 or 5 at that time. Okay, so that was the time we looked for a lot of things to try, to look at the things that we can do and to do a lot of exploration. All right, and on the upper right, it's the stage about ring phone, calling mommy. And then there's a ring, ring. And then he said, oh my goodness, he left it at home again. So that was a time when we were very busy, super busy, and I intentionally left the cell phone back at home so that I can be more focused, things like that. And on the bottom left is the stage that he said, bring purse. So that was the time I forgot to bring my purse to work. And then when I get back home, I complained saying that I didn't even have money to get my lunch, things like that. And then he made this kind of a reminder for me. And the last one is on the right, is pretty straightforward. He made it this year. Okay, bring mask. I see germs, oh no. Okay, and then he remind me that I have to bring mask whenever I go out, things like that. So I would like to use this short comic strip to describe my journey as well. So for the first exploration stage, in order to have good ideas, one must first have lots of ideas and then throw the bad ones away. So that's the time, that's the stage we bring about a lot of ideas to try different things and see if anyone works better than the other or anything that we have to modify. Okay, so that's the time that we set up our service scope. We focus on consultations, looking at the study design, how to use the appropriate metrics and the limitations of a metric. And of course, you can say that it has to do a lot with about education. Okay, so teaching people how to use metrics appropriately, responsibly. Okay, and then we also do a lot of training, related to training that has to do with a theory background or hands-on analysis, how to conduct analysis, and then do a lot of training in using the software tools. And of course, we provide a lot of analysis. We have those core analysis and custom analysis. So for core analysis, basically it is something we just pushed out in the very beginning. We decided that we're going to push out analysis for each of the center and institute here in NIH to let them know how their research is doing. So we pushed that out. And for everything else that is requested or customized, it falls into the custom analysis. All right, so these are our service scope we defined in the very beginning. Okay, so this is a just very quick overview about the things that we do over the years. And you can see that we started in June 2014 and 2015 all the way to 2020, but I stopped here at 2019 because we would like to have a complete year. All right, so if we look at the 4 kinds of services that we provide, the average is about like 200 by the 2 of us. I forgot to mention that we have constantly remained a 2-people team most of the time. Okay, so it's from the 2 of us, Chris and I, and then so it's like 200 records from both of us. If you just wanted to focus on the analysis, it's about 100 analysis per year from us. Okay, so given that background, you can see that we have a lot of things to do. We have to test the vendor databases to look at the citation metrics or the alternative metrics or any other metrics that we can use. We also have to look at the NIH internal databases to look at the grants, the publications, the patents, the clinical trials, things like that. We also have to do a lot of testing and learning of the openware to do analytics and visualizations. So that is a stage of a lot of learning and testing. And then we have our report template. So 4 areas that we always include in our reports is about productivity, about collaboration, and collaboration can have a lot of different levels. You can have the author level, you can have the institution level, you can have the co-funding level, or other things that people requested. And of course, we look at the research topics from a lot of different perspectives. We also put in analysis about the citation impact. So from 2014 till current, this format has been quite consistent. I would say that we remain the same for probably 90% of the template, but for each year we add a little something different to the template to make it slightly more, sometimes even more visually appealing, or maybe a new indicator, or sometimes we add in something, a new standard, or maybe a new tool, things like that. So it has been quite consistent, but with a very little variation. Okay. At this very beginning stage, we also have to do things to try to increase our visibility. Okay, so we do have a small campaign going at that time, and it's online, looking at saying that we have a publication analysis at the NIH library, and you can see that at that time we didn't even use the term bibliometrics because we worried that people do not really know what bibliometrics is. So we use publication analysis at the NIH library. Okay, and training again, one of our major goals. So for the NIH community, we have our training curriculum at that time. So it was in person, and we have 4 courses doing around the whole year. Okay. And for the library community, we actually had our first bibliometrics event in 2014. It's a much smaller scale one hosted in Library of Congress. Okay, so we did have that one in 2014. Much smaller one, but we did it. And we also try to evaluate our service, not really to the point of the impact evaluation, but more towards the direction of satisfaction. Are people satisfied with our services, with the things that we do? So we had a service survey at that time. So we put it online. So whenever we finish something, maybe a project, maybe a consultation, we send that along with the results. And we launched that survey in June 2015. But till the end of the year, we only got 4 responses. Okay. So the lessons we learned during the first period of the first stage is that for our service goals and scope, we think we are right on target. Okay. And for the data and tools testing, it's always ongoing. And for the training and the event, we heard things like that. We want something that is more hybrid or online, and we want something that is more hands-on. And for the service campaign, we did reach a limited audience, like a few people, but we felt that the referrals or maybe the word of mouth actually are more effective. And finally, for service evaluation, we felt that online survey not really working for us. And that led us to the second stage, the stage of establishment and expansion. So that was from 2016 all the way to 18 or 19. Okay, so that was the time we were super busy, ambitious, full of enthusiasm. So it's like, if you give me wings, we could fly. Okay, so it's like, give me the lever long enough and the fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world. All right, so that was the time we really had to focus on a lot of the time management, and also look at the budget that we have, to look at the sources that we can use, the sources that we can purchase, and how or if we would like to expand the services. So you can see that we have increasing demand at that time. All right, so from 2016 all the way to 2019, it's pretty consistent that we have an average of 200 requests or projects per year. And we have a lot of diverse questions. Okay, so people are asking a lot of very interesting questions like, Is there a difference between 4-year training and 2-year training in terms of the fellow research performance? Or are there enhanced or expanded collaboration relationships? And how have the research topics evolved over time in certain area? Or what is the impact of animal studies? And are there gender disparities in the field of epidemiology? Or is NIH-funded research aligned with NIH-produced research? So basically looking at the NIH intramural and extramural research. Okay, so this is part when we look at a lot of different things. So people wanted to look at the time-sliced development of their collaboration for over 50 years. So you can see that from the very beginning of a very small group and then expanded to the most current stage. Okay, and you can see how the people changed, came and went, and then how people stay and then produce the research. And they also were interested in looking at how different research topics went into their group, went into their area. So again, this is a time-sliced graph showing how different research topics are being done at a certain different time. So they're color-coded. You can see that each different color represented one decade, so from 1967 all the way to 2016. Okay. For the animal studies, it's a very interesting one to me because the question was very open-ended. It was simply like, how do we show the impact of animal study? Because it was asked during the time when people would like to cut the budget for animal study because they said that they had no impact, things like that. So when I got this request, what I can think of is that, okay, so if we would like to justify or to show the impact of animal study, we may want it to show the impact of other types of studies as well. So we actually pull out all of the study produced within NIH to look at if it is just animal studies only, or it is with a combination of a human and animal, and if it is only human subjects. And then we look at a lot of different citation indicators. Okay, like the articles they produce, the citations they receive, the average citations, and the percentile ranking, and their article, percentage of articles from clinical trials, things like that. And surprisingly, what we found is that the group that has the highest average citation and also the highest top 10% citation is a group of the middle one, the one that has both humans and animals as the subjects in the study, which actually showed that animal studies are important and essential to a lot of the studies produced by NIH. So we were very pleased to find the results here that we can actually use something from the combination of a human and animal to show the importance of animal studies. All right. And as I said that this is a time that we had a lot of requests and a lot of larger data sets. So we have to make good use of our time, and we want to do our analysis or projects much faster or in a more efficient way. So that's also the time we went to the route of scripts and codes. And I know that Chris used R, I used some VB. So we went to that route to learn a lot of things to facilitate our analysis or data cleaning to do that. And for the training, we did a lot of outreach. Okay, so we did our first CE courses in MLA and in SLA in 2016 and 17. We provide a lot of local workshops, and we did a lot of guest lectures. And within NIH, now we have monthly training classes. Okay, And for the Symposia, as I mentioned, we have the 2014, 2016, and 2018. And you can see that the attendees kept increasing, okay, from the very small one and then all the way to 240 something in 2018. And we have a lot of different training sessions, poster session, lightning talks. So that actually led us to think that we have to produce some sort of training portal to collect all of the training that we provided and maybe document them so that we can share with a larger community. So that actually spent a lot of our time. We did our training, and we have our team member recorded that basically on words and put into the documents and a lot of screenshots. So it is text-based. All right, and we have all of the things recorded already in words. But then we feel that there are other things we have to work on. So we look at service evaluation as well. And we got a lot of positive feedback. Like one of the 3 treasures in NIH, the coolest thing in the whole wide world. They really help understanding about portfolio and publications. And like the best, most experienced people to contact for bibliometric related projects are the NIH library staff at the clinical center. And the lessons we learned is that our services on target, the analysis, we got a lot of diverse research questions, a much larger data sets, and we have to use some sort of a codes and scripts, and we have positive feedback, but we don't know the usage. And for the training, we have those kind of a text-based manual, but it's really not working that well because it's very long with a lot of screenshots, and we have to make it FIOA compliant. So it actually adds a lot of difficulty to make it really able to be distributed. And that led us to the next stage, the evaluation 1 stage. So that is from 2019 to present. Okay, so that is the stage about inside out and back again. So after a long period of very busy and tiring working years, we feel that it's time that we have to look back again, to look into what we are doing, what we have been doing, and how we are doing, what is the direction that we should go. Okay, so it's time that we put on our glasses again and look for the important information. So, as I said, we had a problem with the first training portal. We don't think it's that good. So we started working on the second version. Okay, so this time we have a new buddy. So we are Chris, Candace, and I, the 3 of us, we created a series of 13 recorded sessions, which is online, and all of you can get access to that. So in that 13 sessions, we included everything we know, or I should say most of the things we know about the bibliometrics, from the theory to all of the challenges, to the responsible use, and to all of the analytics, the tools, everything into that 13 series. So it's kind of like an undergraduate course for a semester, I would say. Okay, and we have all of it recorded with the images and with the materials over there. So please feel free to view them or to take them at your convenience. And at this time, we also think that since we have enough projects for us to do analysis right now, we should probably also look at our user. So we did a very quick user type analysis to look at who our users are. And very interestingly, we found that a large percent of our users are actually the leaders or the administrators in the NIH. And another big part of the users are the program analysts or program directors, which are usually the people who are monitor the specific funding program, either trans NIH or maybe outside of NIH. Okay, and we also have a small percentage of researchers who are using our services. So that led us to think about the kind of services these groups of people may need, and it can be different. So when we look at the service, the request that they asked, and we did find that the things they need are different. So for the administrators, the leaders, basically, they just want the projects, the analysis. They don't want the consultations or the training, okay, because they do not have time to do that. They just want us to provide analysis, the results to them. For the researchers, it's kind of like half and half. They wanted to learn. They also wanted to do the things on their own, okay. And for the analysts, the program analysts or program directors, they are the ones they are actually most interested in the consultation or the training. Okay, so you can see that like 2/3 of them are more, okay, ask more for the consultations and the training. So in a way, we realized that because of the different user group, we actually have different needs, and we have to do different things for them. So we started collecting the usage stories from these different groups. So whenever we push out an analysis or maybe a project or a consultation, we just ask that, hey, could you tell us how you're going to use that? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes people just say that, okay, I'm going to use it in blah, blah, blah in the meeting. Period. We still do not know how it is going to be used, although we know what is being used. Okay, but we are able to gather some stories, which I'm going to share with you later. Okay, and it says that, okay, the stories include the researcher promotion, award application, and recruitment, and also about research collaboration promotion, and also about division branch review, about strategic planning, about decision making. So about research review and promotion. The request is like that. How complicated it is to do my bibliometric analysis as an author. They implemented now a new mandate for our branch review that the chief has to show leadership in the scientific field of his research, and insight would be great. So he is asking me to do something to show his impact. Okay, and another request is about Dr. Fauci. Okay, so the request is that they wanted to have Dr. Fauci's publications ranking in the field of immunology and his top 20 most highly cited papers. And they said that we use this for his bio and for award write-up. And also the TV show 60 Minutes is doing a profile of Dr. Fauci and ask for that. So we do this kind of things for them, for the researcher, and for our wonderful leader here in NIH. We also do bibliometric services for recruitment, actually. So they said that we're hoping the library can create for us for some high-profile scientific searches for recruitment. Just focus on the top 30, 40 male researchers and top 10 female researchers in specific fields. And we actually have a series of requests like that to look for top researchers in the specific field to be recruited to NIH. And regarding research collaboration, we did a lot of things about providing data, providing methodology design, providing analysis, visuals, results, interpretation, and write-up. Okay, so one example is that I'm writing about something that is related to my lab, and I wonder if you would be interested in being a collaborator, a co-investigator on the project. The field of blah, 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 blah. So basically asking for collaboration to work on a project about the collaboration, the publication, the research. Okay, so the topic was about to look at 40 years change of prenatal diagnosis techniques reflected in certain journal. So what we come up with is that we use the major mesh terms to create the heat map and to look at the change of the certain techniques. So you can see that during the years of 1990 all the way to 2014, they are the major techniques being used in cytogenetics. Okay, and then there are other things that is pretty new, like the non-invasive prenatal technique. It's really new, so it only shows here in the very recent years. Okay, and I also want to highlight the one that Holly just mentioned by my good colleague or my partner of a crime, Chris Belter. His wonderful work for the NIH leadership about HeLa cells research. So what he did was to promote the research, the medical research here, the medical research. So he did a fabulous research about analysis on all of the medical research using HeLa cells or involved with the HeLa cells, and then he created a beautiful visuals on that, and you can go to the link to look at that to see how research can be promoted through Bibliometrics. And also, Bibliometric services has been used in a lot of division or branch review. So this one says that I use this service initially for the Board of Scientific Counselors Review. So for those of you who are not familiar with the Board of Scientific Counselor Review, it's kind of like the accreditation for the higher education thing. So it is for NIH intramural or NIH groups. So all of the NIH groups have to be reviewed by these outside members, non-NIH members, every 3 or 4 years. Okay, so they have to go through this kind of a review as well. So this group says that I initially used your services for the review, and I think it was incredibly helpful to give a snapshot of our impact and the areas we work in and how connected we are. And I have recommended this service to several other PIs since then. Okay, and another similar request is that I'm reaching out to see if we can get the individuals and division analysis for the BSc review, again, the same thing, which will take place on September 2020. And we would like to start by doing the same thing we did last time. So we did it last time already, and they came back to do it again. Okay, and we also we're being used for strategic planning. So this was actually from a director saying that we have published our strategic planning and we are quite pleased with the way it turned out. So she actually attached a PDF copy and say that thanks for all of your help with the initial analysis. So the initial analysis was actually to look at all of the publication the Institute funded from the past 10 years and also the publications they produced from the past 10 years and to see if the topics aligned. Okay. And another one from another director is saying that I'd like to thank you again for the bibliometric analysis doing on the zebrafish publications, and our director will give an NIH Council of a Council presentation, and we would like to invite you to that meeting, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And finally, we also are being used in decision making. So the request is kind of interesting, because the original request is kind of like, do we play well with each other? So that was the director saying that she wanted to see the collaboration patterns within her institute. So what I did is pull out the publications produced by her PIs, okay, and then to look at which building in the NIH they were located. Okay, so the number here, you can see that there are building 10, building 45, building 35, Fisher building. Okay, and these are different buildings, and especially building 49 and the Fisher building are actually outside of the Bethesda campus. So one in Baltimore, the other is in Rockville, so different places. So, and you can also see that their collaborations are actually very building focused. So a lot of collaboration within building 10, a lot of collaboration within building 35, a lot of collaboration within 49, but not too much collaboration across the building. So the director actually made a decision that she is going to create new grants. She is going to give money to the PIs who propose cross-building collaborations. So that actually made her change her mind to do different things. And that made me really pleased to know that we do have the power to make things different. And then it went to a different stage of evaluation. The year of 2020, and the year we are now all students. The year we are wearing the masks. So that is a year we think that we should focus, we should look at our service policy to look at what we do, who we serve, what is the policy for the services that we provide, the scope, the fee if we have to charge, but most of the time it's free. It is just a draft, and I'm sorry that I won't be able to share with you because it is just a draft, okay? But we do have some basic understanding to protect our time because we really have to spend a lot of time to do analysis, and there are so many things that we have to do, and if one person keeps coming back to ask for extended requests, we simply cannot do it. So we have some sort of a threshold to protect our time so that we can serve the entire NIH community. Okay. And for the Symposium 2020, right now, we actually booked the physical facilities back in 2018, right after we finished the 2018 Symposium. And we started planning for an in-person one in 2019. But in the beginning of March 2020, we are starting to have a second thought. And April 2020 is probably the longest month in this planning process. The small community planning committee, all of us have been thinking that should we do this in person or should we move it in online? Should we move it in a hybrid way or should we just do it and then maybe cancel or postpone it? What is the best way to do that? And April 29th, that is the day we decided that let's just do it online. Let's just move it entirely online, do it virtually. And you can see that we have to change a lot of things because we started the planning already. So we changed a lot of things. We did it online. We did another new round of planning, programming, and we've reached more than 45 countries based on the registration, which we were really pleased because it is our goal to reach as far and wide as we can. So we also learned that we have to say no. this is a time that we get so many requests, so many projects, and we were so busy and overwhelmed. And there are still people who just say that when we ask them, when do you need the results? And they said that, oh, by today. And it is just not possible. So we have to say that, no, sorry, it's not possible. You will have to wait. You have to give us time. It really takes time to give you the results, the analysis. We also learn to protect research integrity. So the background is that we have a request talking about that they wanted to do some sort of a topic analysis on basic and applied behavioral and social science research to identify gaps in integration. So this is a 9-month project starting with the literature search to define the scope. And then we had the pilot study. We designed the methodology to do some analysis, and we did some revisions. We also had some conference presentations already. And then it came back, okay, so this is kind of the visual from the pilot study looking at the basic and applied behavioral sciences. And you can see that there are 2 clusters and there is gap. So there are things that we can connect it. So there is a direction to go, okay? But then I received the email after 9 months saying that I've already shown the introduction to blah, 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 and my thesis sponsor. But if there were anything technical I need to add for the bibliometrics section, please let me know. Okay, the key word, if you're not aware of that, is thesis. So basically, that person is a fellow. The fellow wanted to use this project as her thesis, but basically it is our design. We don't think that it is appropriate to give her the sole authorship for her thesis. Okay, and we confirmed that it's going to be her master thesis. So we decided that we're going to terminate this project. So we think that this is the only way we can protect the research integrity and ethics. Okay, we also were very pleased to learn that our users learn to challenge metrics. Using the metrics responsibly is always one thing that we highlight. So the background is coming from a director wanted to know that if the salaries of his PI correlate to the metrics associated with their performance. So basically, he gave me a list of the name, and we pull out their publications, some of the performance, and the citation indicators, things like that. And he will do the part about salary because it is confidential. All right. So I provide him with this table of all of these the investigator or the researchers with the gender information, publication, citation, their H index, RCR, the top 10%, things like that. And then the director came back to me saying that I was actually kind of surprised at some of the results in that they didn't fit with my priors. Also, I noticed some surprising qualitative differences in an individual's H index and metrics. For these reasons, I decided not to include anything about these metrics in my presentation. So I was very pleased to know that our education or our training actually rooted in NIH already, and the directors were challenging some of the metrics, the use of the metrics. So that all led back to the final question. So how should a successful bibliometric services program look like? I'm not saying that our program is a successful one. As I said that as a player myself, I just cannot act as the referee. Okay, But traditionally, library services evaluations are based on stats. The numbers about instructions, the reference services, the circulation, the use of electronics resources, a lot of things like that. Okay, and we can collect tons of numbers or stats, but these numbers actually put new library services like bibliometric services at a disadvantage because these definitions do not actually include analysis, projects, and the time that we have to spend in doing this analysis. Okay, so when we are looking at bibliometrics analysis, a lot of time we said that we want to look at mixed method evaluation. So the same thing here. We want to look at the qualitative one about the usage and impact stories. We also want to look at the quantitative one about based on the measurable outcomes, like our teaching, training, consultation, the transactions, the projects, and analysis. Okay, but they also have their pros and cons. Okay, if we look at the usage or impact stories, we know that they give us a lot of good example stories. They're more in-depth. They give us a lot of details and more process-driven. But the cons is that it's kind of a subjective, and it may not be representative. Maybe only a few of the directors or the leaders are thinking about that way, and it is something that you may not be able to reproduce. Okay, but for the quantitative outcomes, it's the same thing. The pros is that it's very convenient, it's easy evidence, it's comparable, it is less time consuming. And the cons is that we always have the problem is that when we use a quantity, are we able to show the quality? And maybe there is a goal displacement. When we look at the quantity, the numbers, we may not be able to really do the quality work for our users. And perhaps we can game the system. Okay, if it is something that you would like to look at, maybe this is something that we should work on. And that could change the service direction. And of course, there's always a lack of a benchmark for new services. So numbers do not really mean everything. And does this sound really familiar to you? If you're nodding, okay, this is actually the slides that I always use when I talk about citation impact indicators, when I talk about the strengths and limitations of citations, the numbers. Okay, we share the same limitations and strengths. All right, so eventually it actually led to the final thing about the rule of balance. Bibliometrics services are unprecedented services, and unprecedented services need unprecedented measurement. So we need to find a balance about the numbers, the quantities, and the quality, or maybe the impact stories that we collect. And what is the balance? I have to say that I don't know. It may vary from library to library, from place to place. But as long as we've reached our ultimate goal, that we are affecting our institute's success, I think we'll be good. So I think my final remark is that do not look at stars as bright spots only. Try to take in the vastness of the universe. Evaluation doesn't have to be grueling counting. It's really the weight that counts. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I can take questions. So please let me know if you have any questions that you would like to share with me. And again, as I said, that I'm going to share the slides with you and all of the links that I have from my presentation. Thank you.
Hey, Ya-Ling, that was really fantastic. What a great job.
Thank you.
We did have a couple of questions that I've seen in the chat so far. One was related to sharing the report template, so our template for our ICU reports. Can we share that?
I think we have shared the report with some people already. So as long as we stripped out some of the identifiers, I'm fine sharing with that. You're fine with that too?
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that too. Yep.
Thank you.
And in some ways, some of that report template is also in our Bibliometrics training series.
Yes.
So that's available
definitely.
there too.
Mm-hmm.
Another question was in the co-authorship network. Does that capture only co-authorship, or what about acknowledgements information?
Only the co-authors being included in the affiliation fields.
Great. Let's see. I'm trying to start to work through here. I'm curious if, another question, I'm curious if you have any suggestions about how to elicit, quote, deeper research questions.
What kind of deeper research questions? I'm not sure I understand that part. A lot of the time we have to do a lot of consultation or reference interview with our customers. So in terms of the deeper research questions, I think it all takes place during that consultation or reference interview stage. So we really know what they are looking for and to look for the directions that they should go or maybe the methods that they should use. I hope I answered your question.
Great. Final question. With so many roles and services, how do you divide your time between training, projects, and consultations?
This is a tough one. I'm really bad at time management. So a lot of time I just throw myself in and tell me that you have to get it done. You just have to get it first, and then you can work on the next thing. And I have to block some time for the specific training that I have to do, and then I have to devote the time to the work. But sometimes I feel bad that I really cannot devote as much time as I wanted to the things I really wanted to do because of the other things that I was requested to do. And sorry, I have to be vague here. But please understand that we do have to wear multiple hats, so we're trying to do the best that we can.
Yeah. And I guess it looks like there is one more question. How do you justify things like budget for tools, costs, budget for staff time among other library services such as literature searches, systematic reviews, and collections?
This is actually something we as staff do not really have much to say except to say that we wish. So we can have, we do have some sort of a wish list at the end of the year saying the kind of a thing that we wish to have, and it could be resources, it could be staff. So I did make some wishes already, like the resource or maybe the tools that we would like to purchase, or maybe the additional personnel that, or maybe the colleague or the people that we could hire. But it's wishes. It doesn't mean that it will always be granted.
Yeah. All right, we are coming up on 5:45, so I think we're going to go ahead and leave it there. So this concludes the 2020 Bibliometrics and Research Assessment Symposium. Thank you all so much for everything. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for being so engaged. Thank you to all of our presenters and everybody who's helped us out in creating this. This has been far more successful than I think any of us ever hoped it would be. So we're really heartened by the response that we've gotten. So Thank you all again. And once again, we will keep some of these channels of communication open, and we'll see you all again really soon. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, everybody.